Across Europe's oldest churches, barns and bridges lies a quiet mystery that has, really baffled modern builders. How did medieval carpenters manage to preserve wooden beams that still hold strong after 500, 800 and even more than 1,000 years? Walk through Scandinavia, rural England, Bavaria or the Baltic countryside, and you will find timber structures that have honestly defied rot in climates that seem tailor-made to destroy wood. These builders worked without synthetic preservatives, without pressure treatment systems, and without waterproof coatings. Yet their beams remain firm. Their posts are still sound. Their foundations have not collapsed into soil. The survival of these structures is not accidental. It is the product of engineering that, modern homeowners, carpenters and survivalists rarely use today. Before we get into the technique itself, let me just say the first minute matters, because once you know it, you start recognizing it everywhere. You see it in the blackened ends of old granary posts, you see it in bridge pilings that never softened, and you see it in stave church foundations that have endured brutal winters for centuries. This was not a superstition, nor was it a decorative finish. This was deliberate technology. Technology, honestly, that modern builders would benefit from bringing back. The key to the medieval rot-proofing method was, controlling moisture before the wood ever touched the ground. Medieval carpenters understood that rot does not begin the moment wood gets wet. It begins when wood stays wet. Their approach focused on changing the outer layers of the timber so moisture could not soak in and linger long enough for decay to take hold. They developed a system that, hardened the surface, expelled internal water, and created a natural barrier fungi had difficulty penetrating. This method, honestly, cost nothing but time and observation. Long before chemistry labs existed, carpenters studied the grain-tested beams and learned how wood reacted to heat, soil and exposure. Their solution became both a protective treatment and, over time, a cultural standard. The technique that stopped rot was controlled surface charring, combined with natural sealing agents. Modern builders, tend to associate burnt wood with decorative finishes or the more aesthetic version of the Japanese shosugi-ban method. But medieval Europeans were using a similar idea centuries earlier, and their purpose was strictly functional. The outer few millimeters of timber were intentionally charred over a bed of coals. This was not deep burning. It was a slow, careful heating that hardened the wood's cellular structure, reduced moisture absorption, and made the surface inhospitable to fungi and insects. Heat forces water out of the cells, breaks down sugars fungi feed on, and turns the surface into a thin carbon layer that repels moisture. After the charring, medieval workers often rubbed the wood with pine tar, pitch or animal fat while it was still warm. This sealed the pores and added another layer of protection that, remained flexible as the wood expanded and contracted through the seasons. This combination was especially effective in ground contact applications where, honestly, modern lumber fails quickest. Posts for barns, mills, bridges, fences, and even houses were treated this way because, well, carpenters knew the base of a timber was the first point of attack for rot. Archaeologists studying medieval granaries often find that their supporting stilts are darkened, hardened, and still intact after centuries of exposure to wet earth. The same pattern appears in Viking piers, Nordic stave church foundations, and wooden fortifications across Eastern Europe. Wherever wood was placed in soil, charring was present. By controlling the burn and sealing it with tar or resin, the timber behaved more like a water-resistant shell than an absorbent sponge. Structures like the Hedel and Borgund stave churches in Norway still stand on wood foundations in climates with heavy rain, deep snow, and harsh freeze-thaw cycles. Their longevity isn't due entirely to the type of wood used. It's because the bases of those posts were prepared the old way. Many medieval barns in Germany and Austria still rest on charred posts that have outlasted the buildings above them. Excavations of Viking harbour pilings often reveal wood that retains its structural integrity even after long-term saltwater exposure. These examples illustrate that the technique was widespread, effective, and deeply understood. Modern builders can apply this forgotten technique with simple tools and excellent results. For anyone working on homesteads, cabins, or outdoor structures, resurrecting this method is straightforward. A person constructing a shed or small cabin can char the lower ends of posts before setting them into the ground. Someone building a garden fence can use the same approach on untreated wood instead of relying on chemically treated lumber. Even modern bushcrafters crafting tool handles or tent stakes can benefit from the hardening effects of light charring. The process is done by laying a bed of coals, rotating the timber slowly until the surface darkens and hardens, then sealing it with pine tar or any natural resin-based oil. The goal is a thin, even layer, not a deep burn, and the wood should be rubbed with the sealant while still warm, so it penetrates into the charred pores. Once cooled, the wood becomes resistant to moisture, pests, and decay in a way that feels nearly permanent. Well, this method fell out of use not because it failed, but because faster, chemical-based solutions replaced it. You see, industrialization encouraged speed over craftsmanship. Pressure-treated lumber became the norm, and synthetic sealants became more convenient. Builders stopped preparing wood by hand and instead relied on manufactured products to do the job instantly. The medieval technique required slow heat, multiple stages, and knowledge passed down through apprenticeships. It wasn't flashy, and there was nothing to sell. But it worked. It still works. And, in many environments it actually outperforms modern treatments that degrade under ultraviolet light or leach chemicals into soil. Bringing this method back isn't nostalgia. It's a practical step toward longer-lasting, low-tech building. The medieval solution remains one of the toughest, most sustainable defences against wood rot ever developed. If you want more historical engineering deep dives and forgotten techniques that still outperform modern methods, subscribe to Relic Logic and share this guide with someone who appreciates real, time-tested craftsmanship.